Oh, Karen, hello. Welcome to welcome to the latest and always greatest edition of Six Rings and Football Things, brought to you by your friends at WEEI, Odyssey, and 2400 Sports. We join you today from our respective workspaces and live from the NFL owners meetings in beautiful Orlando, Florida. It's your old pals, Nick Fitzy Stevens, Mike Kadlick, and the person who's actually got boots on the ground, or should I say, loafers at the Ritz. It's our good friend from the Boston Herald, none other than Mr. Andrew Callahan himself. Callahan, thanks for taking out a couple minutes between RKK comments and Gerard Mayo shuffleboard sessions to join us, big guy.
You got it. Yeah, Gerard was just a few feet away. Got to catch up with him for a little bit. And you had me inspecting my footwear. Like, I want to see these are both shoes. They were, I think, TJ Maxx $10 from like 5 years ago. So clearly I belong at the Ritz. But good to have feet on the ground in Orlando where it is warm. And I will not pain you anymore. I'll leave it at that.
Can we get just before we get into any of the specifics about what Coach Mayo said yesterday, what you heard just moments ago from Robert Kraft speaking with people? At least I'm just very glad that there was not the din of construction going on in the background, a truck backing up, birds chirping behind the owner of the Patriots. It was a nice clear chat as well. I've seen before even getting on with you today, bud. We've seen an awful lot of you. Yesterday you were practically sitting on Mayo's lap, and today, like, you are like, your mic is like right in the owner's face. Like you are now like the poster child for, as people like to call it, Patriots media cartel.
Yeah, is that a get there early situation, or is that a sharpen the elbows and just give one to Giardi in the teeth or something?
Well, look, anytime you can sharpen your elbows around Gerard, you have to do it. That's just first time you meet him, you know that's how life is going to be with your relationship with Mike Giardi, good friend and pal. But no, it's look, we're all catching up to Mike Reese, right? Like, he tweets the photo an hour before Drive sits down for his breakfast yesterday. He's tweeting photos 5 hours before when we have home games at Gillette Stadium. So I'm playing catch up to him, but I have also done favorite NBC, working with them sometimes to say, hey, if you need someone to hold the mic, like, let me know. And so Tom Curran was not, there 20 minutes before. I said, I'll just grab a spot. If you need me, let me know. And, just did them a solid, trying to be a good teammate.
So it's really, Mike, it's really Andrew's kind of like representative of this whole entire new collaborative approach. Like, we're all we're all just grabbing an oar. We all want the plane to land. We all want the team to be functional, positive, and enjoyable. And so let's get into that. Before we get into the comments, even from coach, owner, and more, what's the general, like, there seem to have been a lot of buzz and vibe checks so far, and none more that sort of shook the boat, if you will, than yesterday when Tom Pelissero, in the middle of an NFL Network sit down, drops the whole, like, JJ McCarthy may be the number 2 selection overall bomb on all of us, which invoked the draft chaos theory 5 weeks out. What are you getting? What sort of sense are you getting on how the Patriots are approaching things from people that you've spoken to down there, Andrew?
So they have a small contingent down here. Pretty much the folks that you've seen on camera are the ones that are here. Jonathan is also here. Certain assistants, the in-house media, but that's really about it. They have one of the smaller contingents of any team in the NFL, so it's hard to glean much more. Aside from, again, seeing Drod here or other people around last night, getting into those conversations. I will say this though, his comment about 5 quarterbacks I could see as solid starters, right, was a big takeaway. I'm not saying that's not true. That just surprised me in conversations I'd had with people back at the Combine, where they're all on board with Drake May and Jane Daniels and Caleb Williams, which is even a stretch, right? It's not often you feel the same or good enough about all the quarterbacks at the top of the draft, let alone those ones backsliding. So it might be smoke. It might be just trying to induce a Godfather offer. But I think whether it was a Pelissero report or the talk that we heard from Mayo or anything else going on at the owners' meetings, let's remember, this is silly season. It's not a grain of salt that we're taking with this. It's a much larger quantity, and I think that's the right approach here, especially as we get closer and closer to the draft.
So I'm curious off that then, because me and Andy Hart talked about this yesterday about it's obviously a clear change on how they're working with media relations and really telling the truth and being open and honest. And I know you wrote about it yesterday and I loved the OJ comparison. Like, I thought it was great, and it's it talks about, or you talk about the changing of the guard almost and how things are indifferent. And I'm just wondering your thoughts on, are they talking too much? Like, are they telling the truth? Is this all, and not that they're talking too much, because, we all sat here during the Belichick administration and said, well, you're not giving enough. You're not giving enough. And now it's almost like we're flipping on it. So I'm just like kind of curious on your thoughts on that whole situation with, what they're saying, what they're not saying, what Robert said today, and things like that.
Sure. So what I would say is just be mindful of our part in this equation, right? Like communication is sending and receiving messages. The way that we're receiving these messages is so jarring and shocking because it's so different. We're trying to get adjusted here as much as they are finding their footing when it comes to public messaging, setting expectations, freaking finding a quarterback. So if we're mindful of like, this is still so different, we're getting accustomed to, let's just say detox. It's a harsh term, but it gets the point across. Detox, 24 years of Bill. Here comes in 2 months of Mayo. We're not going to be used to that just yet. So I would just say for people who are like, it's too much. Oh my God, he's not doing the right thing. We're getting accustomed to what we're hearing, the receiving these messages. As far as the sending part of that, I think it's good that they're more open. I think it's good that they're frank, that they'll answer direct questions in a way that Bill never did, and famously not at the owners' meetings with the OJ SIP. That being said, there are going to be missteps, and Gerard said it himself. He doesn't know if he's going to be a great coach. It's going to take a little bit of time, and so I would just preach, as he did yesterday, patience. But when we're getting more information and it's just generally a bit more affable, it doesn't mean they're always going to tell us the truth. Their job is to lie to the media sometimes. But otherwise, I think it's been a very positive change, and we're still going to get used to it.
Yeah, Brady famously said a while ago when he was on LeBron's The Shop on HBO that 90% of what he said was a lie as well. And so smokescreen season is part of the business as well. I'll just say, and I know you and Andy chopped this up a little bit yesterday, Mike, and Keefe and I did last night on EEI, and I'm sure you've probably had a number of conversations with Giardi and Reese and Doug Kyde et al. Down there, Andrew, in between the $30 Caparenas and whatever else you guys are sipping at the Ritz and your $25 Eggs Bennies.
And my $10 TJ Maxx shoes, just want to
I got to say, like, personally, as somebody who both is a part of the media from whatever distance, as well as someone who still clings desperately to his fandom, I love the transparency. I love the not jovial, I'll say, but sort of like affable nature to things. And I thought there was a gentlemanly composure to Gerard Mayo yesterday that we had not heard in some, last year. Bill's famous last NFL owners meetings is him being dour and glum and wearing Robert Kraft's Stop Jewish Hate pin down on his belly. And it just sort of was like a harbinger of the season and times to come. Whereas now Gerard Mayo is doing a good job of not. I was most impressed when he didn't throw Matt Patricia and Joe Judge under the bus, but talked about in the de-evolution of Mac Jones, how important it is to surround your players with good coaches that work in tandem in growing the system and growing the player and maturing the team. Like, it was very refreshing, and it set the right tone. Now, they still may go well under the 4.5 win total that Vegas set for them and released yesterday. That could just be a talent issue, but I like what he's trying to do. The guy hasn't even run a freaking practice yet. So we do have to show a little patience, Callahan.
Yeah, I would agree. And the word I would keep in mind, whether we're talking about someone who's off the ball or operates more like Bill, and there are plenty of other coaches who operate with the media, right? That's the context we're talking about, and that's not where you can win games or lose them. Is authentic. That's the word I would use. This is authentic to Gerard. And so when he comes off as affable, that'll connect with players who don't say, are you putting on, or are you being honest with me? It's coming from a genuine place. Now, again, as the media, we should always be critical and cognizant of what is in their best interest to say right now. And is it that thing, or are they actually being honest? Like, that's the part of this here for us. But as far as him being authentic, this is who Gerard is. We're all getting to learn him better and better. But from everyone I've talked to around him, played with him, coached with him, like, what you see is what you get. And I think that's refreshing, not only just because the affable part is refreshing, but, we all knew Bill was projecting a bit at the podium. It was performative, right? In the name of protecting that advantage, whatever he was doing, it came from someplace within him, but not the guy that you would probably see in any other setting except for behind the podium.
I just wonder how long it gets old for him, right? Because everything he does, everything he says, even you guys asked him about it yesterday with the burn some cash stuff, right? And it's like, it's great. It is the honeymoon phase right now. They haven't had a practice. They haven't played a game. And I hope they continue to stay open. But again, if every single thing, every single word, Wolf, Kraft continues to get parsed through, do they stop being so open? Does he realize, oh, maybe Bill had a point that we should kind of keep things behind closed doors? So I hope it stays open, but I'm curious to see if if things change from that regard.
Yeah, they will change, right? And how will he feel at 2-7? Like, not even he can.
Right.
Right now, it's such a different job, the different responsibilities, the pressures, and then we're going to come up and ask you and be like, "Hey, that third down draw call when you had 9 yards to go, what the hell was that?" It's a fair question. Why run a draw on 3rd and 9? And he'll have to answer it, even though he probably doesn't want to, or it was somebody else's responsibility. So we'll see when we get there. But in the meantime, yeah, it's March. He's being authentic. We're all getting accustomed to it. He's made missteps. I wrote about them yesterday. It's in print today. But but patience. I think just for people's mental health. Watching, following, studying this team is the operative word.
Really, just for your own mental well-being. Like, again, it's not that you're supposed to sit back on 6 championships and all the greatness that was accomplished from 01 through 19 and say, okay, we've had it good. It's okay if this team is a mess, in turnaround or a dumpster fire. We just want something that's representative or at least competitive and competent as well. I think he's putting a good face to things. It's been a slow free agency period. I also like the fact that he had to have to walk back, burn some cash. We'll see if eventually he has to walk back. We're going to be a game plan offense the way things used to be under McDaniels et al. I also thought the transparency and the honesty on free agency was smart, Andrew. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, like, people don't want to hear patient, right? No one does. I don't from anyone, my family members. The word, though, patient is important just because it keeps you in touch with reality, right? They're not, you just said 4.5 wins. 4.5 wins for their over-under. The roster is what it is. The only way you rebuild correctly is slowly and over time. I'm not saying people should lower their expectations for what was just 5 years ago the premier franchise in the entire National Football League. No, but just understand what you're getting into as we watch, we follow, we study, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. I personally think that the way that they've gone about it says that they think that they had a better team than 4-13 last year, and they're looking for better health, depth, and reinforcements. And yeah, maybe Calvin Ridley's girlfriend doesn't want to move to New England. Her loss. Okay. She wants to stay closer to Alabama. Maybe these people do look at the situation and go like, well, shit, I don't know if Mayo's going to be a great coach yet. I don't even know who's going to be the quarterback. So I'm going to go with a slightly more sure thing, whether the value is commensurate to what the Patriots offered or not. But
yeah,
anyway,
so Andrew, I want to ask about that then, because we'll get right into it with Kraft this morning. Because what do you make of that? What do you make of the Ridley comments, the girlfriend stuff? Like, on one hand, it makes sense. There is a price difference between here and Tennessee, but also pinning it. Like, I saw your tweet saying like she's just trying to have her breakfast this morning, and all of a sudden Robert Kraft saying it's her fault that Calvin Ridley's not a Patriot. So do you buy it? Do you not?
She didn't mean to be trending on Twitter this morning.
Seriously.
Like, and I put eggs, and someone immediately goes grits, which is just so perfect because that's Twitter, right? Like, hey, the space between your last word and the period, I have to let you know about it, but also more accurate and funny, and that's the part here. Like, I don't know what the odds would have been, and if you guys have a sponsor, insert gambling company here, for Calvin Ridley's girlfriend to be mentioned in this Robert Kraft press conference, and not only mentioned, but like reinforced as blame her, look at her. Now,
right.
I'm glad he brought up the quarterback board because that's much more relevant, as is the money, as is the taxes, as is just the weather out here. It's not on that woman, but it was the most jarring answer. I thought it was the funniest. And largely, though, it spoke to a more serious takeaway for me was he's playing defense right now, right? Like, you listen to EEI, you watch TV, you hear different podcasts. People are upset with the Crafts, and it's the spending, it's the losing, it's now the Dynasty reaction. And so everything he said, not everything, but I would say the majority was, in defense of something, whether it was not getting Ridley, the Dynasty, et cetera, all the things I just mentioned.
Yeah. Speaking of that, in case anyone didn't get a chance to hear, here was Robert Kraft this morning speaking to Andrew Callahan and reporters from outside the Ritz at the NFL owners meetings about the reaction and how he felt to the Dynasty. This one, I got to spoiler alert, everyone, is not going over well once again with Pats fans. So take a listen.
Some really prominent people that were interviewed for hours that never were used. So little disappointed that there wasn't more of a real positive approach, especially for Patriot fans who have lived the experience with us.
Robert, one quick follow-up on that. Specific to Bill Belichick.
What did you think, Andrew, when you heard that live? Did you think like, ooh, this is some meaty spin control, or is he, is it legit about the whole, they didn't have final say? It's just there's been so much negativity around that. I mean, that opened up so many cans of worms and scabs that I felt like were just ready to start healing after Belichick's dismissal, and now feels like this is a little Kraft central spin control, dude. I think we have a signal. I think we have a signal issue with Callahan down at the Ritz. Either that, or I think and the Patriots officially have gotten to Andrew Callahan. They have cut they cut his mic. You're not going to talk about the dynasty today, pal. Oh, he's back.
Yeah.
Hey, my guy.
Girlfriend came over and dumped all of her grits on top of
We started talking about the dynasty, and they peeled your connection off.
Well, no, I just think it's I just think it's amazing. Like you said, there's a lot of like Ginger Rogersing right now. Like everyone's dancing backwards, trying to do spin control, as opposed to moving forward with how people have reacted to the show and everything else. Part of me wishes they did a focus group with 25 Patriots fans and said, "What do you guys think this is going to do?" Or maybe even sat on it for a year. But what was the general reaction amongst all you guys in the media pool before we let you go, Callahan? When Kraft said that this morning.
So I don't think his comments about his general reaction to the dynasty were all that surprising, right? I love this stuff that got it started, that was furthest away, that gives us that nostalgic feel, and obviously we're more positive. And that he lamented, the negative parts, that Devin McCourty and Rodney Harrison had their comments left out. I think it was convenient for him to use them as a vehicle and kind of co-sign on what their complaints were already on the record in this viral video, because that's not really offering anything new. It's just parroting what they're saying. But again, the owner's going to complain about negative reaction, focus on controversies, guys getting left out. What happened? The second answer to me was much more telling. And if you want to take it this way, damning. I'm not going to argue. The most common criticism put by Greg Bedard is, Belichick is we've all at least heard, if not said, was unfairly maligned and blamed too much for the end of the dynasty. What is your reaction to that? He says, I would like to say something. It was a privilege to have Bill here, and I'm looking forward to putting him in the Patriots Hall of Fame. We will honor him. And then the next 20 seconds were about Tom Brady. And then circle back around to like, oh, yeah, Bill will also be in the Hall. But the majority of that answer, and I tweeted out the whole quote, you can read it, was about Tom. And I think that was a way of dodging that answer. The Hall of Fame is independent of how Bill was represented in the dynasty. That's not what you were asked about. Is Bill going to go on the Hall of Fame? You're asked about the reaction and the criticism. And I think it's unfortunate, but in a way, it was also pretty telling.
Yeah, and I agree that, like, you look at, and everyone pulls up the screenshot of the Kraft Dynasty LLC, and I don't really know what it means. And people, Hamachek, the director, had said that it was, protecting the rights to photos and videos and all that stuff. And you wonder about final say and things like that, right? But I can only, talking about the first answer, right? You can only, I guess, believe him until you're proven wrong. And so I don't really think that, I guess what I'm trying to say is I believe that he, they didn't write off on this thing, and him saying that, things were portrayed differently or not correct, or not correctly, but painting them in a bad light. I guess you have to believe him, but I agree with you that, you asked him about Bill directly, and him saying nothing is obviously incredibly telling.
We look forward to welcoming into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Come on,
aligned with the fans up until it came to Bill, right? Like you asked most fans, what do you think about the dynasty? One, bum they didn't talk about the win streak, the early Super Bowls. Devin and Rodney got screwed. Cosign. Fans also go, yeah, Bill probably got somewhere between a little bit to a lot of it, too much criticism at the end. And that's where he stopped. He split from the fans there. And again, that's what I think is telling.
Yeah.
Right. Last one here. The quarterback, obviously the number 3 draft pick, that is the biggest topic in all of Boston sports, although the quarterback that is to take over for the Patriots also didn't blow a 30-point lead to the Atlanta Hawks last night.
Woo, boys, what happened?
Jeez. I mean, really, can we just can somebody take our attention away from the dynastic fallout, the QB3 talking more? But you guys asked him about it. As a matter of fact, I think you'll recognize the face if you're watching now live on YouTube or the social medias. This is actually our own Andrew Callahan posing the question to Robert Kraft about what the plan may be at quarterback coming up in the draft.
I guess as a fan, I put my fan hat on, and I definitely would, in the end, you can't win in this league consistently unless you have a first-rate quarterback and a first-rate coach.
All right, so they believe they already got their first-rate coach, and now who this first-rate quarterback is a mystery to all of us. So, Callahan, we'll get you out on this. We've thought it was going to be that it was going to be Drake May forever. Now they're going to meet with Jaden Daniels today or tomorrow at his LSU Pro Day, then May. But of course, as we mentioned at the top, JJ McCarthy has now entered the chat. Could be going number 2 overall to the Commanders. What's your now 1 month out from the draft gut check on this?
So I'm still standing on Drake May will be the Patriots selection, number 3 overall. I will say this though, and again, everything Mayo said yesterday was smart as it pertains to number 3 pick. All options on the table. We like 5 quarterbacks, so not only are we willing to trade back, and we have to take a quarterback, but I'm willing to get one later. I think they are more insistent on a consensus in the front office than I would have expected when it comes to the pick, right? I think it's smart to have a consensus at the top. They seem to want to be top to bottom. We're all in love with this guy. That is something in any organization, in any topic, in any player is very difficult to come by. So if they are more committed to the consensus than just the idea of getting a quarterback or a very good player at number 3, that to me tilts the odds a little bit more towards trading back. Not because it's necessarily about the player, but what they're striving for, as well as getting a great player at number 3, is something that I think is probably too far out of reach. Consensus within your front office on a single player. And that's going to be hard to come by. That said, he said they were close to finding common ground, whether that means trading back or taking a player. I still lean to the quarterback because you need to get one to go anywhere in this league.
All right, my guy. Great stuff. Thanks for taking a little time out of your morning in between talking to the coach, getting a vibe check, putting up your columns at the Herald and more. You guys can give him a follow, as always, @Andrew Callahan. And side note, everybody, Andrew and I and friends, Kadlick will be there as well on April 18th at our favorite brewery on the South Shore, Vitamin C, in beautiful Weymouth, Massachusetts. We'll be having a benefit to help out the heroes at Boston Children's Hospital in honor and memory of young Hallie Kide, who passed away earlier this year. We're calling it the Draft Party. We're going to put together a consortium of some of the finest football minds and just give you guys a chance to grab some pints, raise some money, and talk some football together. So you can follow us on our socials and get details from there. Keep up the great work, guy. Thanks so much. Travel safe, and we'll see you soon, okay?
Thanks, Andrew.
You got it. I hope to see everybody April 18th. Beer, Pats Talk, Draft Talk. It's going to be a lot of fun. See you guys.
Can't beat it, buddy. Take care, pal. Andrew Callahan from the Boston Herald here with us on 6 Rings and Football Things. All right, Kadlick, let's get to some of the other Pats Puri elements, the news, notes, and nuggets that are driving the narrative in Pats Nation right now. Just moments, though, before let's take a broad view. Let's go 10,000 feet, as the corporate types like to say on this one. The new kickoff rule was approved. Yeah. And look, I am not one. I take more shame laps than I do victory laps in this life, but I'm just going to say a couple years ago, I haven't gone back to find the tweet where I put it out a couple years ago, but I will. I said a couple years back, just change the damn kickoff rule to the XFL rule. It'll work better. It'll get more people moving and it's safer. And now this morning, as we found out, the XFL style kickoff rule has been approved. And just like with everything new, the hip drop tackle was yesterday. Now today, we have the new kickoff rule. There are proponents of it, and there are diametrically opposed, nasty opponents of it. Where do you stand on it?
I love it, and I think that we just need to get used to it. It's something that is going to look, I guess, ridiculous at first because, again, you're not used to it. You're not used to guys standing still and, aligned in different positions to start. But my understanding is it's going to limit fair catches because, there's more of an incentive to land it ahead of the goal line. And without the kickoff team on full sprint from the opposing 35-yard line, it's going to limit, crazy contact, crazy hits, and hopefully limit injuries. And so, look, I think by week 5, we're going to love it. I don't think there's going to be any complaints. I think it's going to make a ton of sense. It keeps, everyone talks about, oh, well, football's changing and things are, being eliminated and it's going to turn into flag football. And I get that. Like the hip drop thing yesterday, ridiculous. But this is keeping the kicking game in the game, which everybody wants. And so I love it. I think, again, we just need to get used to it. And I think it's going to be really successful.
I love it. I loved it when I saw it in the XFL, full well knowing that this could A, prevent more injuries, and B, would actually foster and encourage more kickoff returns and plays. Now you don't have 240-pound, 5% body fat, armored man missiles sprinting down the field, crashing into each other. It is the most violent play. It is the most dangerous play in the game. But kickoff returns now had gone way down. There were only kickoff returns on 22% of kickoffs last season in NFL. And also, side note, let's not bury the lead here or throw the bathwater out with the baby here. The onside kicks are now going to go up as well, because now you have to declare it's going to be an onside kick, number one. And number two, you are allowed to use an unbalanced formation. So you can put 6 dudes on one side, 4 on the other, and kick in the direction of the 6 dudes and hope that maybe you actually get a chance. So
the only thing that stinks there, I don't like that you can't really do a surprise onside kick anymore. Like, and I get it. It helps now because the odds
how
are going to go up again.
How many have worked this century?
No, I know. You're
in the
right.
Super Bowl.
There was the one in the Super Bowl. No, I agree, and I get it. But there's also less of an element of surprise. But again, it helps the odds because you can unbalance the line. So overall, I like it. And it kind of reminds me of like Live Golf and the PGA, right? Like, Live kind of goes above and beyond. And there's, people smashing beers on their heads and everyone's in shorts and they're screaming in the backswing and there's DJs on the ninth, like things like that. And, it gets pretty ridiculous, much like some things in the XFL.
Well, we've already got a nightclub in Vegas now at Arizona.
Exactly.
They built Airbnbs in the effing end zone. I mean,
right. So this is one of it's almost like if the PGA would just adopt, hey, let the guys wear shorts. It's almost like, okay, NFL, adopt the cool kickoff rule because it works and it makes sense. And I'm glad they're going in that route because, again, it adds more fun. It makes it more exciting. As soon as you get used to it, we're going to love this. And I don't think we're going to have any complaints.
Yeah. And the next thing they need to do is adopt the XFL style. You can either, if you're behind in the game, you can either choose to kick off, declare an onside kick, or 4th and 15 from your own 20.
Yeah, I think the Eagles proposed that 4th and 20 thing, but that was 2 years in a row and it got shut down again. So eventually I like it. We'll see what happens. Again, that kind of adds, again, I guess I'm missing the word I'm thinking of, but ridiculous. It kind of seems crazy that that's going to be in the NFL, but it worked in the XFL. I like the idea of it. And again, it's just going to be another one of those things where you got to get used to it. And once it's in the game, it's in the game and we're going to like it. So eventually I think that'll be added as well.
Yeah. I'm a fan of it too. So I'm glad you like it as well. What's your one of the things we were talking about with Callahan towards the end there was what's going to happen at 3 with the Patriots, which has been the biggest topic for months and will continue to be up until April 25th at probably about 8:15 or 8:20 p.m. Trade back, take a quarterback, and who's it going to be? Do you buy into the idea that Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and the new brain trust with the Washington Commanders are that high up on the now most touted quarterback, the most buzzed about quarterback, Jim Harbaugh's forgotten son, J.J. McCarthy? Or is this Washington's version of smokescreen season to just throw everybody off and cause someone to panic and send a Godfather offer their direction, the Patriots' direction, or another?
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating. Like you said, smokescreen season, it's in full effect. You don't know what's true. You don't know what's not. At this time last year, people were talking about Will Levis going #1 overall, and then he falls to the second round. People just throw out facts and nonsense and things like that at this time of year. And so as far as JJ McCarthy, he's shooting up boards and he has impressed. He's the guy that the farther away you get from the actual play on the field, he's continuing to skyrocket. And admittedly, I've started to come around to him too. He had an impressive pro day. His measurements coming in at 6'2", over 200 pounds. He's got the build. He has great footwork, and he just didn't really have a chance to, show his full, I guess, repertoire in that Michigan offense. But as far as the Commanders go, I don't really know what their I guess the Godfather offer, like you said, but what else is their incentive to kind of throw smoke, because they're going to have their pick of the litter outside of Caleb Williams. So it sounds like it could be true. And I wonder, because Adam Peters did come from that San Francisco system, the Shanahan, type offense. And JJ McCarthy seems like somebody who could run that to a T, because, it doesn't necessarily put a ton on your plate. I mean, it does, but I just feel like he fits that system right. It's a West Coasty sort of short game, understanding the game, relying on the run game, get the ball out quick. And I think he's great at that. So it will be fascinating to see what happens. And I long story short, I like JJ just as much as everybody else does right now. I think he might end up being pretty good.
Yeah, listen, I think he's great. The kid's lost 2 football games since he started in high
Right.
school. So, the kid's a natural winner. I get that. But to me, first, just look, it's all about the coaching to me. So,
Yeah.
Mac Jones played better than he may have played anywhere else his rookie season because he had the steady, nurturing, paternal hand of Josh McDaniels,
Right.
who probably got the most out of him he could, especially given the talent they surrounded him with. If JJ McCarthy goes second overall, Peters says, no, this is the kid. We're going to build around him. He's smart. We watch the tape, go to YouTube. He's hyper athletic. People are
Right.
gushing about his mechanics, his footwork. And one thing that I've gone back and forth with Keefe and Hart about is I don't know who has the psycho desire to win. You can't underestimate the unquantifiable, which is their
Right.
will and their desire, the edge. I don't know if Caleb Williams has that. I'm not sure where that is with Jaden Daniels. I think Drake May has a little bit of that. I know for a fact JJ McCarthy is
Yeah.
kind of nuts.
I saw a story about JJ McCarthy the other day, and it was TJ Houshmandzadeh was on Colin Cowherd the other day, and TJ Houshmandzadeh and McCarthy were on the same flight to the combine from wherever they were, and I'm not going to say Houshmandzadeh 8 more times, so we're going to call him TJ for the rest of me explaining this.
Yeah.
But TJ said that McCarthy didn't know he was on the plane, and he's just sitting there watching him. And for 2.5 hours, McCarthy was just diagramming plays, like studying football the entire time. Anybody else is not going to do that. Like that's what you talk about, a desire to win, a desire to play. Like, he lost only one game in college over 2 years as a starter. He's sitting on
the one game he threw for 400 yards and got robbed of the Roman Wilson. He played his ass off in that game.
Yeah, right. And so I liked hearing that story, and it wasn't performative either. Like Houshmandzadeh said that, he didn't know I was on the plate. He was just sitting there doing his thing, and I'm sitting there watching him saying, holy crap, this guy really loves ball. And, all these guys like football. All these guys are going to want to be pros. Like, it's kind of hard for me to sit here and say that one guy likes to win more than the other, but seeing that, hearing that firsthand or secondhand rather from him was pretty interesting to hear.
Yeah, it was. See, that's the thing that I think people are sort of sleeping on in regards to that. Now, anybody can have a will to win, but if they don't have the talent around them and the physical gifts and the understanding of the game, then it doesn't really matter. I think he'd be a great pick. You're just going to have to be willing to give him some time to adjust to the pro game. And I don't think Jim Harbaugh has any stock in this kid. And no, Pats fans, they're not going to trade Justin Herbert to us for the right to try to draft him third overall.
Wouldn't that be fascinating, though? Because, again, he has touted the crap out of J.J. McCarthy, and they have the 5th overall pick. If he's
loves
sitting
him
there,
more than anyone has ever loved another player not on their team in history.
Like, I wonder what he says to their front office in the draft room, the war room, when J.J. McCarthy's sitting there at 5 and is like, let's just do it. I want to work with this kid. I don't want to work with Justin Herbert.
Yeah,
like,
we already had to get out from underneath Mike Williams. We get out from underneath Keenan Allen. Herbert's 52.5, but they can't. Have you heard the dead cap money on moving Herbert? It's like $100 million.
Yeah, you can't do it. You're right.
You can't do it. No, he's working with, and you should be so lucky as to make your way back to the pros and have a stud like that with a laser rocket arm like Herbert. Like, he'll get the most out of him and change things. Now, McCarthy could be going into a system. Isn't Cliff Kingsbury his offensive coordinator now with the Commanders?
Yep.
Okay. Well, he's going to get a lot out of him over time. I think it's a great landing spot for him. And as far as Caleb Williams to Chicago, he's going to have Shane Waldron. If Caleb Williams actually tunes in and isn't too busy listening to podcasts on his AirPods or thinking about what he's going to get from DoorDash later that night, then maybe he'll develop accordingly. Chicago's done a great job surrounding him with talent this offseason.
Right.
We have to, don't worry about Alex Van Pelt and TC McCartney calling a wonderful West Coast offense and score, like surprising people by scoring 30 points a game. If the Patriots take a quarterback at 3, Mike, to me, it is all about what kind of a job do they do? What kind of a job do they do growing, maturing, and teaching the game to Drake May, Jaden Daniels, or whoever else the Patriots may take should they trade back? It's all about who was a part of that coaching infrastructure as much as it is like, oh, did you see that throw he made, in shorts and shells, 73 yards on a tether,
100%. Like, these guys, all of these guys have talent. It's about honing it in, finding it, and developing them into a player. And obviously there's different examples of like guys who are just busts and just things change and they don't have the desire. And you hear the Jamarcus Russell stories about how they handed him a blank CD and he just didn't watch the film and lied about it. Or Johnny Manziel in his documentary giving I watched 0 film. Like, there's guys like that. But for the most part, all of these guys have talent. And you're right, Fitzy. It's more so what you put around them. Is there consistency? Like, again, with Mac, Josh McDaniels is there for the season and then he's gone. And then you screw him over with, Patricia and Judge, and then at that point he's on 3 offensive coordinators in 3 seasons, and it turns into a disaster. So you mentioned the Patriots specifically, like, yeah, there's Cliff Kingsbury, and yes, there's Shane Waldron for the first 2 picks, but the Patriots are going to have Alex Van Pelt, and Van Pelt was sort of an under the radar name, and we've done this and we've rehashed this over the last month and a half since they hired him, but he's a guy who I don't think is going to necessarily shoot off for a head coaching job in 2 seasons. Like, he's in his 50s. He hasn't really been, desired in that position. He's at an offensive coordinator. Why isn't he just going to be here and stick around for the next 5-6 seasons with the quarterback you draft and develop alongside of him? And as long as the system and again, TC McCartney too has worked with quarterbacks. So, like, you have a quote unquote quarterback guru, a quarterback shop here with McCartney and Van Pelt. And if it's successful, these guys can stick around for the long-ish haul and hopefully develop this guy into the franchise quarterback he can be. So, yeah, you're right. It is all about, what you put around them. And I think the Patriots have, at least a decent support system to get this thing rolling.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the will to win and you don't have the proper infrastructure with a game plan for how they can mature you into a successful NFL quarterback, into a system that plays into your strengths with the talent around you, then you're screwed blue and tattooed. Before we wrap up, Mike, just want to see, for the people that are watching live on Facebook, YouTube, and our respective socials as well, who do you want most at quarterback and why? Who is your, like, you can have anyone right now, Mike. Who is your ultimate number one?
I'm going to go Drake May. I'm going to stick with Drake May. And I think we talked about
Patriot.
Yeah, I love you, Giardi and Andy.
Drake and Bake. Oh, there's so many different nicknames for him. I mean, he is definitely the clubhouse leader in terms of, like, marketability, nicknames, merchandise, and more. But
and I feel like the talk of the town now is that he's just going to end up as a Patriot, and so naturally Washington is going to take him, and then we're going to be stuck, quote unquote, stuck with Jaden Daniels after everybody loved him 2 months ago. And so no, but I'm going to go with Drake May. I think he fits what they want to do. I think he fits with what Van Pelt, the type of offense he's going to run, more so than even like a Caleb Williams. And so I know Caleb's going to go to Chicago, and so he's kind of out of the picture anyway. But I'm sticking to my guns, and I'm going to say that Drake May should be the guy here.
I was all about Jaden Daniels until I pumped the brakes and took a second to reconsider the Mac Jones factor. Mac Jones, went to different SEC schools. Yes, Mac Jones had an insanely good running back, a great system, and 2 world-class wide receivers who were both first-round talent. Guess what? Jaden Daniels had a system tailored to his strengths, 3 and 4 wide all the time, never under center. He's hyper-athletic, but he also has 2 first-round wide receivers in his arsenal as well. His senior season, when he put up insane numbers, 50 overall touchdowns, and won the Heisman Trophy. So I have a little hesitation about him as well. I still like Mike Penix more than other people do. That's not going to happen. I wouldn't kick JJ McCarthy out of bed for eating crackers either. If the Patriots say, like, we think he is the most upside, that to me is a clear signal that Jacoby Brissett will be starting the entire year, because you don't want to bust this kid. You want to give him time. He's only started 25 games in college. That's a big difference as well. Hey, I'm coming around on Drake May. Why are there so many Drake May detractors? I don't think it's paralysis by analysis season.
That's what I think it is. I think it is 100%.
Merrill Hodge is right more than he's wrong about these quarterbacks. There are people that say he works one of Alex Van Pelt's biggest tasks is going to be trying to coach this kid out of thinking he can use his arm and his physical skills to make it, like, coach him out of Josh Allen syndrome and let him try to develop appropriately the same way that they did in Buffalo.
Right.
Like if
that's
Brian,
the thing
what's
with
his name?
Brian Daboll.
Thank you. If they can do a Daboll, if Alex Van Pelt can pull a Daboll with him, then we may just stumble into the next great quarterback in Pat's Nation. If they let him hang it high and let it fly, he may bust out before he's ready.
Well, that's the thing. There's Drake May detractors, and everyone's like, oh, well, he might end up like Josh Allen. Like, what are we talking about here? Josh Allen's a top 3 quarterback in football, and he makes mistakes, and sometimes he throws the football backwards, and sometimes he jumps and release. Like, I don't know. You got to be a playmaker. You got to try and make plays in this league, and they hone that down. They I guess backed him off of that, mistake proneness, I guess, if you will, that Josh Allen had early in his career. And now look what he's turned into. So if that's going to be the knock on Drake May, that he might be like Josh Allen, bring him in here, fix him. Maybe he's a little less polished than some of the other guys, but if you have a guy like Van Pelt who can hone it in, I'm down for it. Limit the mistakes and cook with gas there. So I think it's paralysis by analysis. I really do. I think you get into, the draft should be in March. Like, sometimes you just overlook these guys and it gets too in detail. And when Drake May was the guy, at some point you just have to start to look for things that knock him down, where Jaden Daniels on the reverse or JJ McCarthy on the reverse. Everyone had questions. So now you're looking for all the positives, and they kind of take this, dual axis approach or whatever.
See, yeah, precisely. So good question to end on here. We're getting all sorts of feedback on May from people watching live on socials now here on Six Rings. But question from Jeff Stenberg watching live on YouTube. Is the Drake May hate somewhat based on Sam Howell? Same school, same coach, same system, and Howell has underperformed as a pro. I saw enough last year in Sam Howell in Washington. I know he was benched for the final 3 games. Brissett looked pretty good, and now here he is as QB1 for the Patriots. I feel like I saw enough in Sam Howell that if somebody sits his ass down for a year, preaches patience, and teaches him the pro game just a little more, not to just rely on those physical skills, thinking he can run or gunsling his way out of problems, he might be okay. Yes, he did have Eric Bieniemy last year in Washington, but he also had the worst offensive line in the NFL, and they had a lousy defense, and so he just made a lot of bad business decisions last year. He played like it was house money and not a second-year quarterback. That's exactly what May could get into as well if they're not careful with him. It's Trubisky fatigue, Trubisky fear for me. There you go. Good call.
I just can't stand. Yeah, I saw that too. I don't know. I have a hard time buying into the school. The school develops busts. Like, all these guys are different. They're all different people. Different things make them tick. They all have different skill sets. Like, you look at Ohio State quarterbacks, and everyone said Ohio State quarterbacks have always stunk. That Justin Fields and Dwayne Haskins and JT Barrett and Braxton, like all these guys, they were great in college, but they don't develop. But then you look at CJ Stroud this year, it's like, oh, that guy's pretty damn good. And even at the University of Oregon, like Joey Harrington was a bust and Marcus Mariota didn't patent out. But, Justin Herbert, that guy's pretty damn good. Like, I don't know. I don't fully buy into that. I think that these guys are their own people. I don't care that he went to UNC. I don't care that Mitch Trubisky was a bust. I just think if you have a really good football player, you can turn him into something. So
Gonzo Duke points out, when I said that Daniels had 2 stud wide receivers, so did Mac. Gonzo Duke said so did Joe Burrow. Yeah, but you could tell Joe Burrow, they call him Joey Burr for a reason. He goes ice cold. He's a killer. He's a psycho. He's got that, like, oh man, I don't want to be in a shootout with this guy mentality. Right. And these are all the unquantifiables we will continue to monitor, discuss, and think about. Man, it's going to be fun. Man, is it going to be fascinating. I just got to
get here. We're in that, like, it's not even a dead period because there's so much stuff going on, but it's like, I just want the Patriots to be on the damn clock, and I just want to know what they're going to do. I want to know what the direction is. And right now it's so many question marks and smoke screens. It makes it that much more fun.
So stay tuned to our socials. He's at Mike Kadlick. I'm at Fitzy GFY. We're both members of the WEEI team. Tomorrow is Jaden Daniels' pro day, coming off of the NFL owners meetings in Orlando. We thank Andrew Callahan for joining us again. Right after that will be Drake May's pro day. Look for a lot of big, long, flashy throws, a lot of oohs and ahs as they complete bombs and ins, outs, slants, and more. It's going to be more about what we think we hear from the meetings and just getting a general temperature check from all those other things that really matter most with the quarterback. So we'll keep you up to date on all that. I'll be on the Rich Keefe Show tonight and tomorrow as well. And you can find Mike on the dial and, of course, at weei.com. Anything else, my guy, or shall we wrap it?
No, let's wrap it. This was fun. Me and Jumbo will be back live on Six Rings tomorrow as well for a one-off Wednesday. The subject is TBD, but we'll be back. So keep it here. Subscribe to Six Rings Pod and all that good stuff.
I love TBD. That's the new FEA, which is of course the new LFG, which became the new GFY. All right. There you go, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, listening, watching, share, and subscribe. And make sure you listen to the podcast, subscribe, tell your friends all about it. We are building quite the coalition in the most active and dynamic Patriots media reporting and fan community possible. For Kadlick, for our pal Callahan from the Boston Herald, this is Nick Fitzy Stevens saying thanks so much for listening. Good day, God bless, and as always, go Pats.